11. To sum up, gentlemen, the best thing is to do nothing. Better conscious inertia. So long live the underground. Although I may have said that I envy the normal man with all the rancor of which I am capable, I wouldn't care to be him in the situation in which I see him, although I shan't stop envying him all the same. No, in any event, that underground is more advantageous. There one can at least, you see, here again I'm lying. I'm lying because I myself, I know, as sure as twice two is four, that it's not the underground that's better in any way, but something else, something completely different, which I long for, but which I cannot find. To hell with the underground, even if this will be better. If I myself could believe just a little of all that I've written now, I solemnly assure you, gentlemen, that I don't believe one word, not a single word of what I've just scribbled here. I mean to say, perhaps I really do believe it, but at the same time, I don't know why. I feel and suspect I'm lying like a bootmaker. So why have you written all this, you ask me? Well, I'd like to shut you away for 40 years with nothing at all to do, and then come and visit you after 40 years to see what had become of you. Surely a man can't be left alone for 40 years with nothing to do. But isn't that disgraceful? Isn't that humiliating? But isn't that disgraceful? Isn't that humiliating? You may possibly ask me, scornfully wagging your heads. You thirst for life, and yet you try to solve life's problems with muddled logic. And how tiresome, how impudent your outbursts are. And at the same time, how frightened you are. You talk nonsense and are happy with it. You come out with the insolent remarks, yet you constantly fear for the consequences and apologize. You assure us that you are afraid of nothing, yet you come crawling for your approval. For our approval. You assure us that your teeth are clenched, and at the same time you crack jokes in order to amuse us. You know that your jokes are not very witty, but you're evidently satisfied with their literary merit. Perhaps you really have had to suffer at times, but you have no respect whatsoever for your suffering. There is even truth in you, but no integrity. Out of the pettiest vanity, you carry your truth to the marketplace to be paraded in public and put to shame. You really do want to say something, but from fear you conceal your last words, since you haven't the resolve to say it. Only craven impudence. You boast of your consciousnesses, but all you do is vacillate, since although your brain is functioning, your heart is darkened by depravity, and without a pure heart there can never be full, authentic consciousness. And how importunate and how importunate you are, how pushy, how pretentious, lies, and more lies. Of course, I've just now invented all these words of yours myself. This too comes from the underground. I've been listening to these words of yours through a chink for 40 years on end. I thought them up myself, you see. There was nothing else for me to think up, so it's not surprising they were meant, or they were learnt by heart in acquired literary form. But surely you're not so gullible as to imagine that I'm going to publish all this, and what's more, give it to you to read. And I have another problem on my hands. Why do I, in fact, address you as gentlemen? Why do I treat you as if you really were my readers? Such confessions as I intend committing to paper don't get printed or given to others to read. At least I don't have sufficient firmness of purpose for that, nor do I consider it necessary. Don't you see? A certain fancy has entered my head, and at all events I wish to realize it. Now this is what it's all about. A certain fantasy has entered my head, and at all events I wish to realize it. In every man's memories, there are certain things that he will not reveal to everyone, but only to his friends. And there are things that he will not even disclose to his friends, only to himself, and even then under a veil of secrecy. But finally, there are things that he's afraid of divulging even to himself, and every decent man has quite an accumulation of these. It might even be the case that the more respectful a person is, the more he will have of them. At least, only recently I decided to recall some of my earlier adventures, which up to now I had always passed over with a certain degree of uneasiness. But now, not only am I recalling them, but have even decided to write them down. What I really wish to put to the test is, can one be perfectly honest with oneself and not be afraid of the whole truth? Apropos of this, I would point out that Heine claims that true autobiographies are almost impossible, and that a man will most certainly lie about himself. In his opinion, Rossois, for example, undoubtedly lied about himself in his confessions, even lied deliberately out of vanity. I'm convinced that Heine is right. I can understand perfectly how one can sometimes accuse oneself of all sorts of crimes solely out of vanity, and I even understand very well the nature of that vanity. But Heine was passing judgment on a man who was making a public confession. But I'm writing for myself alone, and declare once and for all that if I'm writing as if I'm addressing readers, then it's purely for show, since it's easier writing like that. It's only a form, an empty form. I shall never have any readers. I've already said as much. I don't want to be restricted in any way in my editing notes. I shan't introduce any order or system. Whatever I happen to remember, I shall write down. But here you might start quibbling and ask, if you're not counting on having any readers, then why do you make such compacts with yourself? On paper, what's more, That is to say, that you won't be introducing any order or system, that you'll just write down what you happen to remember, and so on and so on. Why are you explaining all this? Why are all these excuses? Well, you just think, I reply. There's a whole psychology here, however. Perhaps it's that I'm simply a coward, but perhaps it's because I'm deliberately imagining to have an audience before me so that I conduct myself more fittingly when I come to write things down. There could be 1,000 reasons. But there's something else. Why? Why exactly do I want to write? If it's not for the public, then couldn't I very well commit everything to memory without putting pen to paper? Quite so, but it will turn out somehow grander on paper. There's something inspirational about it. One can be more self-critical, and it makes for better style. Besides, perhaps by writing things down, I really shall find relief. Only today, for example, I'm particularly oppressed by some very ancient memory. It came vividly to mind only recently, and since then has plagued me like some tiresome musical motive that one can't get rid of, but meanwhile I must get rid of it. I have hundreds of similar memories, but at times one of them stands out from the hundreds and weighs heavily on me. For some reason I believe that by writing it down I shall rid myself of it, so why not try? Lastly, on board, I do nothing the whole time. Writing things down is really work of a kind. They say that work makes a man good and honest, well, at least there's a chance. Just now it's snowing, almost wet, yellowish, dirty snow. Yesterday it snowed too, and the day before that. I think the wet snow reminded me of the incident which refuses to stop pestering me. So let this be a tale apropos of wet snow. Alright, that's the end of number, what number is it? The end of number 11. Oh yeah. I think I'm on like a part 2, I think. I'm on a part 2. Yeah, I'm on a part 2. Alright, y'all. Peace.